Hey everybody, welcome to another week of Wrestling with Wrestling. I'm Steve Shives. Joining me as always, my co-host Doc Gregory,
Hey, how's it
referee,
going? Yeah,
indie referee extraordinaire.
yeah. AKA Doc Gregory, AKA Doc Hollywood, AKA the Man of Meat, AKA the coolest guy on the planet, at least the coolest one I know.
The man of meat. I like that.
Got a big M on my shirt or something like this, and it's spelled out in bacon.
Doc the Meat Man Gregory. Um, well, we have since it's the show after a pay-per-view, we have a little bit more than usual to talk about this time. This is our first show since Extreme Rules, so we got that to cover, and we've also got last night's Monday Night Raw to talk about. So let's start with the pay-per-view, or I guess I should say the special event, since they're not calling them pay-per-views anymore.
Hey, I paid to view it.
That's true. I mean, it's like a special feature of your network subscription.
Mm.
Yeah, and you mentioned on your little promo video you did on Facebook that I did really well with the predictions this time.
You did.
I think I got every single one right. I correctly called every single result,
Yeah.
which is the first time that's happened to me for a while. And it's the first time it's happened since we've done this show, and it's the first time it's happened for me just in general for a while. So, but yeah, well, let's start with the pre-show match, and I'll let you take the lead on this one because I missed the pre-show and I haven't gone back to watch the WLC match. So what did you think? Give me a sense of what the WLC match was like. And the result was that El Torito won, but I didn't see the match. So
Yeah, El Torito won that match. Now, I am a huge fan of wrestling that takes you outside the norm. That's why I'm a big fan of women's wrestling, and I am a huge fan of midget wrestling. So when I saw that they were going to have this match, I was pretty excited. Gabe Hornswoggle's been in the WWE for a long time now, and he's had nothing to do but dumb gimmick after dumb gimmick. And technically now he's still doing a dumb gimmick because they put him with like one of the worst losing trio in the last couple of years. But when it came to the WLC match, I thought that since it was a free match, I thought they probably could have put that on the pay-per-view. It was really cool. I love how they set everything up small. They had a small referee. They had a small ring announcer. They even had the small commentating table, which that's where Short Sleeve Samson was sitting. He was one. But it was funny because it was like Jerry Smaller, Micro Cole, and JWL. So I felt that was really well set up. The match itself, these guys, they're small in stature. They're limited to really what they can do. I thought it was really cool. They had small tables. They had small ladders. For the most part, that angle, the whole setup for that match was great. And it gave me everything that I usually am used to seeing out of a midget matchup, and for that I tip my hat to the WWE for giving me at least one time in so many years an enjoyable, entertaining, fun to watch match, which is what really that is. When midgets wrestle, it's supposed to be for comic relief for the most part. You're not going in there to see them be powerhouses or technically gifted, although El Torito is a high flyer. So, but it is what it was, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, WWE, for putting these guys on TV and giving them the opportunity. And I don't think the feud's over because they gave us a little taste the next night. But yeah, thumbs up. I love the WLC match. I want to see more midgets in WWE.
yeah, well, a few years ago on SmackDown, they kind of toyed with the idea of having like a midget division. They called them the minis, and then they sort of they just really very quickly kind of lost interest in that. But who knows? Maybe with now they have two midgets on the roster that are kind of over in El Torito and Hornswoggle. Who knows? Maybe they'll go back to that. But yeah, it sounds like it was fun. I haven't watched it yet, but it sounds like it was a fun match. You really enjoyed it, and there's nothing wrong with having some comedy on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So the first match of the actual show was the three-way with Cesaro versus Swagger and Rob Van Dam, and this was changed over the weekend to an elimination match. I think the last time, I don't know if it was billed ever on TV before the show as an elimination match. It was just supposed to be a one fall to a finish triple threat match, but then at some point they decided it was going to be an elimination match. And actually, it's funny. When I watched the show, I hadn't kept up on any of the news over the weekend. I didn't watch like SmackDown or anything, so I thought it was still just a triple threat match where it was the first guy to get the pinfall wins. So when RVD pinned Swagger after the frog splash, I thought that it was like and then like everybody kind of looked around for a second and they announced that it was an elimination instead of the match being over. I thought that it was like a botch.
Yeah.
I thought like, oh shit, like Cesaro was supposed to break up the pin and he didn't, and now they have. And then I thought, wow, they really rolled with that, really smooth. Vince or Triple H must have been on the headset going, just say it was an elimination, and they changed it on the fly. And then I find out later that that's not how it was at all. They just changed it way ahead of time to an elimination match. But I had one of those moments where it was like, wow, I was like really impressed that they had transitioned so seamlessly into an elimination match, and that's not what happened at all. It happened exactly like it was supposed to. But
yeah, I actually was thrown off for a minute because I did know that it was turned into an elimination match.
Yeah.
And when Rob pinned Jack, there was that moment of confusion, and I don't know if it just spread throughout the arena and throughout television land, but even I forgot that it was an elimination match. And then when they got back up and the action kept on going, I was like, wait, wasn't that a three? What the hell just happened there?
Yeah.
And I was listening to the commentary. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. It's an elimination match.
Well,
I'd have been disappointed if Rob Van Dam won it. Not really disappointed, but still, we know where wrestling's going with this.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the confusion might have been also that I think Michael Cole seemed confused as to whether it was a single fall or an elimination match, because I think I'm pretty sure, and I only watched the match one time, but I'm pretty sure he described the match as a one fall match. So I don't know. So which either he wasn't told or he just fucked up because they're just used to having one fall triple threat matches. And then after RVD got that pin, Cole kind of tried before they announced an elimination. Cole kind of was trying to sell it like Swagger had kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment where Cole was like, well, was that 3? Was that 2? Or was that 3? When it had obviously been 3. So that was kind of confusing, too. That's one of the other things that made me think, like, oh, shit, was that supposed to happen? Did they just botch that finish? But anyway, I thought it was a pretty good match. Cesaro wound up winning. RVD eliminated Swagger first, and then Cesaro eliminated RVD. About a 12-minute match or so, and a really good opener. Really, everybody looked pretty good, and Cesaro ended up going over. And it looks like Cesaro and RVD are going to continue their feud based on what happened on Monday.
I like that. I like that they did that. I like that they're moving away from Cesaro and Jack Swagger now, and they're gonna move more toward Cesaro and RVD. Which, I mean, okay, the heat for the old gimmick, the old angle's gone. Now we bring in this new angle where RVD was that Heyman guy. And although I disagree, and speaking of Extreme Rules, I forgot to even mention this. I thought it would have been great if Zeb Coulter was in Jack Swagger's corner, Paul Heyman was in Cesaro's corner, and Rob Van Dam would have brought out Bill Alfonso.
That would have been cool. That would have been cool.
I thought that would have been great. But, it's like, to me, they say that RVD was a Heyman guy. Well, maybe he liked Paul Heyman, but to me, he was always a Bill Alfonso guy.
Yeah, that's true. They call him a Heyman guy, but he's a Heyman guy who was never actually managed on screen by Paul Heyman, which is a little confusing because all the other guys they talk about as Heyman guys are guys that have actually been on TV with Paul Heyman. And RVD, if you know the backstory of ECW, he was a Heyman guy because Paul, brought him into ECW and really had a lot to do with making him into a star. But I mean, Bill, if he ever had a manager, it was always Bill Alfonso. So the next match on the Extreme Rules show was the handicap match with Rusev versus R-Truth and Xavier Woods, and Rusev won that one pretty quick. It was like a 3-minute match, which it wasn't surprising. It was basically just there for Rusev to have something to make him look good, look strong. And really, the only notable thing about this match was when Lana came out and cut the promo before the match and announced that Rusev had moved to Russia
Hmm.
and that he was fighting for the honor of Vladimir Putin. And they did the same thing on Raw last night, too, where they put this big picture of Vladimir Putin on the Titantron. And she was like, we fight for the greatest president in the world, Vladimir Putin. I guess
Poor thing.
that's one way to get heat on the guy, I guess.
I swear, how can you look any? I mean, you cannot say the word Putin and look any sexier. I tell you, well, Putin, but look at my
Yeah,
legs. God
yeah,
damn,
exactly.
she's got some nice legs. Oh, man. This reminds me of a movie. One of my favorite movies was called Caveman, starring Ringo Starr. But as soon as I see her, every time I see her, I go Atuka Luna Lana. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch Caveman. Atuk means love. No, I
He's,
mean Aluna means love. Yeah, Atuk was a
yeah.
character's name. Atuka Luna Lana.
I really like the relationship that they've established between
Mhm.
her and Rusev, where she's like controlling him, and he's the only one, like she's the only one who can call him off, and like in the match when it's time for him to do his finish, the way she pounds on the apron of the ring and goes, Rusev crush! I just think that's great.
When did this happen? Because I don't remember the introduction really at the pay-per-view, because I know I believe, called him Alexander Rusev at the pay-per-view. I don't know how they announced him, but then all of a sudden he comes out on Monday and the first name is gone. So
Yeah,
apparently they're going with just Rusev, like they did with Cesaro, like they
Cesaro.
did with Big E. I don't know. I
Because
mean,
you can't expect wrestling fans to remember more than one name for a
I
wrestler.
know.
So I guess if Nick Bockwinkel came up, he would just be Nick. He was just like Bockwinkel. Fuck that. Nobody's going to remember that.
You're gonna be the
It's Nick.
Boxster. You're the Boxster.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, they must have just done that before last night because yeah, he was still Alexander Rusev on the pay-per-view. Um, Next was the Intercontinental title match. Bad News Barrett won the title. He dethroned Big E. I still like Big E. I think it's a shame they didn't give him more to do as the champion because they kind of just put the belt on him and left him there. He didn't really, I mean, he's young. Hopefully, he has a future in the company, but it was the right move to put the belt on Barrett. I think he's sort of on the upswing, and Big E is kind of on the downswing at the moment.
Hmm.
And and Barrett to the crowd, total babyface. I mean, they were openly cheering for Barrett to win this match. And it wasn't. It was a pretty decent match, I thought.
See, he plays both sides of the fence, though. He comes out and he allows the crowd to get behind him. He goes out there and he's clapping, getting them to chant and everything. But then when he picks up his microphone, he'll degrade the fans. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like he's playing both sides of the fence. Fans don't really care. They're going to like him anyways. But, I do hear still a lot of booing. Not everybody's on board with Bad News Barrett yet. I do feel bad for Big E. And
yeah,
this is something I've always thought was wrong with the WWE, that there was a touch of racism at the top because guys who are very, very black, like Big E, don't
yeah,
really ever get that push up to the very top. The Rock was an exception, and he's half Hawaiian. But you look at guys who were built like a brick shithouse, like Ahmed Johnson, Ron Simmons, these guys, very, very black complected gentlemen, they just never got that push to the top. And I think that if WWE stays on course, that's what's going to happen to Big E. I do love Big E's new T-shirt. That thing, bam, it just pops out there. I
yeah.
like that. So his new T-shirt's pretty cool. Yeah, but he's an impressive specimen. But they never gave him anything interesting to do, and I think that's why fans really didn't care.
Yeah, and it's a shame because when he was down in NXT and he was the NXT champion for a while, I mean, he's not Ric Flair on the microphone by any means, but if you give him a chance, he can show some personality, and I mean, he does have some charisma and some personality on the microphone, and they almost never let the guy talk on Raw. So how is he ever going to have a chance? Or when he does talk, it's always the most bland, just like, I'm going to defend my title and may the best man win. It's like, I mean, you're not giving people very much to grab onto, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's one thing. I mean, John Cena can kind of get away with that now and again because he's already a huge star. I mean, when John Cena was coming up, he wasn't going, well, let's just have a fair fight and see who wins. I just care about defending my title. Like, that's way too white bread for wrestling fans to be, especially if you're a new guy, we don't really know who you are, you know? But yeah, so hopefully Big E will be around for a while and he'll have a chance. Maybe a heel turn would be good for him, or at least something to let him show some personality, which he definitely does have. Um, Next on Extreme Rules was the six-man match, the Shield versus Evolution. I thought this was a great match. I thought this was the match of the night. And the Shield went over. They defeated Evolution, and the match, the final segment of the match, the match sort of split in half, where Batista and Roman were the two legal men, and they stayed in the ring, while the other four guys kind of went off in their own direction and brawled through the arena, back behind the fans, and that part of the match finished with a really cool, almost ECW-like dive from the balcony by Seth Rollins onto everybody else. Orton and Triple H were double teaming Dean, and Seth ran up on the balcony and did like a flying body press on all of them, which was a really, really impressive spot. And meanwhile, in the ring, Roman Reigns ended up pinning Batista after the Superman punch and the spear. So a really wild match. A lot of times, I'm not really a big fan of the matches where they brawl all around the arena. I get the feeling those sorts of things can be kind of tough to follow if you're there live in the house, because you're situated to face the ring, and all of a sudden they're brawling like back behind the concession stand, and now you're basically just watching the show on the big TV. But I thought I thought it worked out well. I thought the fact that they kept the finish in the ring as opposed to making it like a Falls Count Anywhere type of deal was good, and gave the fans actually there, the live crowd, something, at least they got the hot finish in the ring. What did you think of the six-man match?
Again, I agree with you. It was a great match. There is a lot that usually goes on when you have six men in the ring, and that was completely expected. Obviously, what Seth Rollins did was phenomenal, because when WWE recaps like Extreme Rules, they've been showing that picture of him diving off that balcony time and time and time again. Either that one or the flaming table picture. Those are the two really key shots they think put the pay-per-view over, or special viewing show, whatever the hell. I'm going to call them pay-per-views.
Whatever they call it.
It took me years to get by WWF, so it might take a while.
A special event.
Special event.
But yeah, I thought it was a really good match, and
I love the way they were screaming at Batista, the "You can't wrestle" chance.
Oh
and
my God,
Batista chance. They were just being horrible to that man, but he deserved
they were, yeah, they were tough on poor Dave. It's interesting too, because actually, apparently Batista is going to stick around at least through the Payback pay-per-view next month. But because I had heard that he was taking his time off like pretty soon, like after this show, and that's actually the main reason why I said I thought the Shield was going to win, because I figured, well, this will just be like a 1 month thing, and then the Shield will have something else to do next month, and the Evolution versus Shield stuff will just be done. But apparently Batista is going to be around at least for the next show. So and obviously from Raw last night, you see that the Shield Evolution feud is going to continue.
That's a kick in the teeth right there. To create it. To the guys backstage that are writing, that's a kick in the teeth if he decided to stay around, because he said he was going to take off, and maybe they talked him into it, but they wanted Batista and Daniel Bryan for the Payback pay-per-view. Dave turned it down. I don't know, maybe it's because he didn't want to lose a match 3 matches in a row, leading
Right.
into going out there and promoting this new film that he's going to be in. But the fact that you made WWE rewrite the whole script, and this is also why they had Kane do what he did at the end of the night,
Hmm.
because it was just kind of a backup in case they needed to go that way. But if you think for 1 second you going back there and making the writers change the storylines and rewriting everything because you decided to leave and then decided to come back around, you're still going to lose if you're involved another pay-per-view match because, well, it's hard to say. He is like buddy buddy with Triple H, but honestly, you should be punished for doing that. And that's not cool. You're a team player. You go in there, you sign your 2-year deal, you go do what you got to do, you entertain the crowds. And Dave, I'm sorry, but you do not make a viable champion. You're boring. You're absolutely boring. You can't talk, and as the crowd sees, you can't wrestle, and you just are a muscle-bound tattoo in the really, really wrong place. Non-wrestling personality that is just hanging out until you got another movie to shoot.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is I agree with what you just said, and I think if you're Batista, no matter what you hoped would happen when you came back or what you thought would happen, you have to just sort of get used to the reality, which is whether you're a babyface or a heel, Batista just isn't that hot right now. People just don't care. Even after he turned heel, it's not like people are lining up to see, somebody kick his ass. Like most people, it just seems like people just are indifferent. They just don't care that Batista's there. And the best spot for him right now is just hanging out with the other guys in Evolution.
And I think that his presence in Evolution has drugged the other two down.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
I honestly think so. Like just him being there because the hatred from the fans is so hot right now that they're guilty by association.
yeah. Well, and he's cold, and especially for a guy who just came back in January after years and years away, like he feels really cold right now. And if he's going to get that main event program with Bryan, it just makes no sense for him to win that program. I mean, if he wants to wrestle in the main event against Daniel Bryan, he's going to have to get used to the fact that he's going to lose because otherwise it makes no sense. I mean, Bryan is, is off of his WrestleMania peak. He's probably gradually sort of coming down now from how hot he was a month or so ago. But he's still the new world champion. And whenever they decide to take that belt off of him, ideally you would want a really hot heel to take the belt off of him. You don't want him to just lose to Batista just out of nowhere that nobody gives a shit about. That makes no sense at all. So Batista really needs, if he's going to hang around, he needs to, either turn his game up and give people a reason to give a shit about him when he goes out there, or just get used to the fact that he's just there collecting a paycheck.
Yeah.
And if they want him to put somebody over, he should say, all right.
He might have a fair chance once Guardians of the Galaxy comes out. That really depends on how that movie does. I want to see this movie. I definitely want to go see Guardians of the Galaxy. It looks really good. But I think if that movie does very well, you are probably going to see WWE really, really, really try to push Batista to the top.
Oh, sure. If it's a hit movie, absolutely, we'll see him. He will win the title, whether he's over or not. Just so they can say, "Oh, look, we have a movie star as our world champion."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next match on Extreme Rules was the cage match, the Wyatt versus Cena match, and I have to say, I've been a huge fan of the Wyatt Cena program up to this point. It's been my favorite part of the show, especially leading up to their WrestleMania match. I didn't really care for this match, and it has nothing to do with Wyatt or Cena. I think they both worked really hard in the match. I don't fault either one of them. I think it's just the way the match was laid out. I just didn't think it was a very well laid out match. I thought that it went on. It felt like it went on too long. I'm looking at the match time here on the recap I'm reading, and it says the match time was 21 minutes. It felt even longer than that.
Yeah.
It felt like it just dragged because there was so many like climbing spots. They did that spot where Cena tried to get out, and the other two Wyatts like kept him from. They must have done that 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, it got old.
I mean, what did you think of?
That was the thing about the cage match. It's like it was, they bragged up a storm. It was designed to keep the other two out of the cage, and that it did for the time being. Um, but yeah, there was just way too much outside interference going on. I would have liked to seen Bray Wyatt get a legitimate push there, like he is capable of handling John Cena on his own without his family members there, and they have yet to give him really anything like that. He's always got that
Yeah.
outside help, and the finish to this match to me just was absolutely horrible with little Johnny. I did not care for that. If I was John Cena, honestly, and I opened the lights went out and I had the door open and there's this little kid singing weirdly
Yeah.
and he's obviously taking Bray Wyatt's side in this war. I'd have kicked that little shit in the head and walked out the door. Little
Yeah.
Johnny would have got a size 13 right in his nose, and I would have walked out the door and won the match. He was only 2 steps away from winning the
Yeah,
freaking.
exactly. You're there. You're there. And it's
And
just
jump over him. You could have jumped over the little shit.
yeah, exactly. Look, oh, that's creepy. Pick him up, move him out of the way. I mean, and it's just it's frustrating because, like I said, I think both guys in the match did the best they could. I just think it just the way it was laid. I overbooked. It was just way overbooked. The other two Wyatts had way too much involvement, and it just felt repetitive. I mean, they must have done that spot where Cena climbed to the top and then realized he couldn't go down because Luke or Rowan was there. I mean, it felt like they did that like every couple of minutes. It's like, how many? Okay, we get it. How many times do you have to do this spot?
Yeah, you got the guy swinging the chair at the cage, and I'm sorry. Okay, when you're in a cage, you're going to take a lot of punishment, anyways. But think about this, John Cena. He's swinging a chair. Gravity will take its effect. If you just let go, you will fall to the ground. He might hit you with that chair, but he's not going to knock you back up into the sky and into the ring. You're still going to hit the ground. the psychology's all messed up. See, now this match should have been perfect. And I'm going to go back here to the pre-show, which is Short Sleeve Samson, who is in a lot of. He's got some heat on him right now with the WWE because he had took a picture of himself before the WLC matchup, and he's smiling. He's in his Jerry Smaller outfit, and you see JBL, the real JBL, with his feet kicked up on his commentating booth. But in the front row behind him is the Wyatt family and John Cena discussing their match. And they're all sitting together and they're discussing their match. And he posted that picture up and got into some deep heat. Now he has removed the picture since then, but it's already too late. It's already been floating around there. So it's like, oh no, he actually gave a little bit away from behind the curtain. That was a no.
Yeah. So much for kayfabe, I guess. But yeah, it's just, I mean, if they wanted to do the thing with like the kid singing, if they wanted to incorporate that into the finish somehow, maybe just have the kid show up and have Cena just sort of stop for a second, like before he gets out the door, and maybe have that's Bray's chance to kind of get up and turn Cena around and hit him with the Sister Abigail or something. I mean, I'm glad that Bray won the match. It was so overbooked though that it almost doesn't really feel like he won anything. Because he had his other two Wyatts constantly running interference, plus the little kid. Although, by the same token, it makes Cena look like an idiot, too. Because, like you said, why not just run the fucking kid over? Or pick him up and move him out of the way or something. Like, this is John Cena. This is like a 35, 40-year-old man, 250 pounds of muscle, like a million-time former world champion. Is he really going to be stopped in his tracks and shit in his pants because a little kid is singing a song with a voice distorter on a microphone?
I mean, which it couldn't line up very well.
Yeah. I don't know. It was the match. It was the only match on the show that I felt really disappointed in because the feud up to that point had been booked pretty well, and both guys in the match, I mean, it seemed to really be giving it their all, but it's just they just had nothing to work with. The booking was just like, Jesus, all they're doing is climbing the cage,
Too many cooks in the book on that match.
Yeah, I agree. Next was the Divas title match. Paige defeated Tamina and went over pretty strong, actually. Went over by submission. She actually got Big Tamina up in the cross lock and lifted her up off the mat and got the tap out. What do you think of the
I think
team?
she started to slip a little bit, but Paige held her up
Yeah,
there. Um,
yeah,
but it was what I expected. You know, you got. I want just as I think WWE wants. I want Paige to continue what AJ did and make that title look good. And I think
yeah.
that the WWE has that same mind frame. So they threw a strong opponent who would have been AJ's next opponent, I believe, if they'd have kept the belt on her, which was Tamina. And I don't want to just see one title defense after another. You know, let's put Naomi on her next week. Let's throw Emma at her next week. Let's start up a program. Let's start up some heat with Paige and get her into a program with someone so we can see a few matches. And that way you don't run through all your divas immediately. Like, you do have a lot of women in the WWE, but you can go through them quickly with all the hours of television you have. So let's start up a program with Paige and get her into that so we can slow things down a little bit. But yeah, strong match. Paige, I like that she technically is a babyface, I guess. I'm not sure. She don't play that
Yeah.
field. She don't play that field though. She goes in there and she shows a ton of aggression toward her opponents. I think that's great. She has a ton of wrestling ability and skill. She is real easy on the eyes, save for that damn lip piercing thing she's wearing. That drives me nuts. I hate that. I don't like any piercings that distort someone's face. So that's the only thing. But you know what? I wouldn't kick her out of my bed for that.
Take that shit out of your face.
She's 21. Hey, she's 21.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I agree with you about wanting to have her work a program with somebody. I mean, that was really, we talked earlier about Big E. That was Big E's problem with the Intercontinental titles, that they put the belt on him and then he never worked with anybody. I mean, he would have matches and he'd defend the title. And I think Michael Cole on Raw last night when they did the rematch, Michael Cole even said, you know, Big E was a fighting champion. But it didn't feel like he was because he never had a feud with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, it was always one-on-one matchup, nothing special. You know, it's like it didn't really do anything special with that title to make his title defense mean anything. It was just straight
yeah,
up one-on-one matches. Like, honestly, you gotta throw some gimmicks in there when it comes to a champion, just so people will back that and get behind it. You got to throw a few angles, a few gimmicks at them.
yeah.
So unfortunately, Big E, like I said, I think it's just, and I'll say it, I think it's a racist issue in the WWE.
Well, I mean, if you just look at the list of main event champions in the WWE, WWF, yeah, there's a lot of white guys, and there's very, very few people of color. And someone in the comments mentioned Booker T. Booker T was the champion on SmackDown as King Booker, but that was I think it's arguable whether or not that was a top belt. I mean, the SmackDown title, whatever title it was, whether it was because of the brand split, whether it was the WWE title or the World title, whatever belt was on SmackDown always felt like it was the secondary title.
And it was a secondary title.
Yeah.
Raw was their lead show, and that's the one where if anything was going to go down, anything exciting, it was going to be on Raw. SmackDown was always taped, and they never gave the importance to SmackDown as they did Raw. And it would be easy just to look at the ratings of both shows, and you can see that we as fans watch Raw more than SmackDown.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay, so let's finish up Extreme Rules. The last match was the main event, the Extreme Rules match for the WWE Unified Undisputed World Heavyweight Championship. Daniel Bryan beat Kane. He defeated the Demon Kane in what I thought was another case of a good match that just went on a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
I thought if they had ended this match with the headbutt off of the pallet, the forklift, I thought that would have been awesome. I thought that was a great finish. Everything after that just kind of dragged for me. And I know they wanted to do the big spot with the flaming table and everything, but I almost could have done without that. If that finish would have been the headbutt off of the top of the thing. I don't know. What did you think?
Well, here's the one thing that I did not like about this match. They left the arena area. Now,
Oh,
for
yeah.
me, Yeah, for me, I had the best seat in the house, so I'm not going to miss any of this stuff. But if I had paid top dollar, say this was a WrestleMania, and I paid top freaking dollar to go sit in the audience, and then you give me a main event where for 15, 20 minutes they aren't even out there, and I got to watch it on TV, I could have done that shit at home. It drives me nuts, and it's not fair to the paying crowd there that night. The crackling noise, I guess it was an electrical thing when they went off back there. That crackling noise,
Yeah.
sounded like the floor was made out of bubble wrap.
Yeah. Yeah, when Kane, I guess that started after Kane threw that TV into that fucking barrel full of water.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I did like the nods, and Mick Foley mentioned this on his Twitter account Twitter.
Whatever.
He mentioned how Bad News Barrett did the bang bang elbow drop off the ring apron, and that they used the flaming table. That him and Edge did that angle back when they did their program. So Mick actually took a lot of pride that they gave him a nod twice that night.
Yeah. Well, and like I say, I completely agree with you about having so much of the match take place outside of the arena. But the one thing I did like about that was at least it put Brian over in the sense that we see him using his head. He's smart. He's thinking his way out of the situation. He goes into the trunk of that car, pulls out the tire iron, and like just fucking brains Kane with it, and rolls him onto the forklift. Like, to me, I know that the flaming table is like a big visual and it's a very impressive spot, but I really feel like the finish of the match should have been that headbutt.
Yeah, I'm looking at this picture right now, and just, I mean, I don't know if I can turn the camera around so you can see this picture, but this man is way the freak up in the air, and it's phenomenal. At this point, the crowd was going crazy. When he started to climb that forklift, the crowd popped and was getting up and ready, and you were absolutely right. That right there should have been the finish. He knocked Kane out, brought him back, dropped him in, did the huge headbutt, 1, 2, 3. And of course, at the end of the match, Kane sat up.
Yeah, which they still could have done. They could have had him take the fall from the headbutt and have Brian celebrate and be walking up the aisle, and then still do the sit up and the ending that they did to tease maybe that it was going to continue.
Because you're going to have more. You're going to have more to have to give these guys now at Payback. So it's like you don't want to throw everything out there.
That's what. Yeah, I thought about that too. I thought, okay, shit, this is their first match in this feud, and they've already used a forklift and a flaming table, and have fought back into the back of the arena. Like, what's the next one? Because they're gonna do now. It looks like they're gonna do at least 2, maybe even a third match. Who knows? I mean, if they do 2, they're gonna do 3. So what's next? I mean, I guess you could always say, well, maybe they'll do like an Inferno match, or maybe they'll do like
Buried Alive. That's what's planned. Yeah, and that's actually what planned for Payback is a Buried Alive match. I was trying to think of that, but I was like, they have already planned something. But yeah, it's Buried Alive for the next match.
Yeah, you figure it's going to have to be another gimmick match because you can't go from getting knocked through a flaming table to just another match.
I can't believe you can go past getting hit in the freaking head with a tire iron.
Yeah.
and then still get back up and fight.
And a couple of times, because like Brian, he cracked him in the head to knock him out, and then after he finally got the forklift all squared away, like he beat him in the head with it again to roll him onto it. I was like, Jesus, so he's got to be just dead, right? You got cracked in the skull with a tire iron 2 or 3 times.
One of my favorite things from Kayfabe News was that Daniel Bryan was suspended and stripped of his title for driving a forklift without having a license.
Yes. Well, they can't be doing that shit.
Yeah,
they're part of a publicly traded company. They have to maintain a certain standard. Okay, so that was Extreme Rules. Overall, I thought it was a good show. I mean, there were just those things that I already talked about. I thought the cage match wasn't that great, and I thought the main event could have been maybe 5 minutes shorter. But everything else was good. The 6-man match was great. I thought it was a pretty strong show.
I think it all fell downhill from that opening match, the WLC match. Just all kind of.
Oh, really?
You gave me the best match of the night with the WLC. I couldn't have got any happier than that.
Yeah. I do think I mean I haven't watched the match, but I do think it was cool that they gave him like little miniature tables and shit. Uh, okay, so let's talk about Raw from last night. Raw opens up with Dean Ambrose. Not only is he now having finally defending the U.S. title, which he did it on SmackDown last week, but he hasn't defended the U.S. title on Raw in a real long time. He defended the title not just in any match, but in a battle royal for the title, where it was really it was. I mean, I guess you could criticize if you wanted to criticize the battle royal, you could say it looked like a jobber battle royal. But really, most of the guys in the battle royal are the guys that, if the U.S. title meant anything, are the guys that should be fighting for the U.S. title anyway, like Zack Ryder. You know, I thought it was a pretty good battle royal. It ended with Sheamus won. He threw Dean out to win the U.S. title. But the closing couple of minutes I thought were really good. The way Ambrose eliminated a couple of people, and it looked like he might actually win the match and hold on to the belt. I thought it was a pretty good battle royal, and I think there was a spot where Cody accidentally eliminated Goldust to kind of continue to tease that they might break those guys up. Although then they never really came back to that in the show. But yeah, I thought it was a good finishing sequence, and Sheamus won. I guess why not?
Yeah,
do something
he's
with
your
Sheamus.
United States champion. You know, he defeated the guy who held that. He was the longest reigning United States champion since that belt has been brought to the WWE.
Very
Not
true.
that that really means anything, because of how many title defenses have you seen out of all them days? I hear that you know, and when you win a title in a battle royal like this, where you know you got 20 men vying for it, it doesn't really add to the importance of the title. With that said, I love battle royals.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I thought that it was weird seeing a few guys in there. Heath Slater, okay, why? He's filler. Fat Sin Cara. Sin Cara's putting on weight, man. He looked chubby last night.
Yeah.
Santino. I think Santino lasted way too long in this match, and who did he put out with the Cobra? Was it Ryback that he put out with it?
It wasn't Ryback. Let me look at my recap.
Or wasn't it? No, I think it was Ryback. And then,
yeah, it was Ryback.
Yeah, it was Ryback, and then Curtis Axel eliminated Santino after that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was shocking. Wow, Santino just gave him this stupid-ass Cobra move, knocked him off. That thing is so silly.
I know. It's like, you know, if they were still doing the Saturday morning show for kids, like the Saturday morning slam show, like have Santino do it on that show and nowhere else. Like don't ever let anybody on Raw ever have to take the Cobra and pretend that it's like, I mean, people bitched about how silly the people's elbow was, but at least that was an elbow drop. I mean, the Cobra, literally, he's just poking a guy in the head.
It's not the mandible claw.
Yeah. So Sheamus wins the title, and then the Shield are in the ring after the match, and Triple H comes out and says, guess what, you're fighting the Wyatts in a 6-man match later tonight, and that winds up being the main event, the Wyatt family versus the Shield, which is still a pretty hot match. And actually, the last time they did it, it was a heel versus heel match. Now it's pretty much a face versus face match. I mean, the Wyatts haven't officially been turned babyface, but they're getting a lot more cheers than John Cena's been getting lately.
Yeah.
And they definitely both have their big followings, you know. And also, Sheamus cut a promo backstage, which kind of felt a little bit like he's kind of leaning toward turning heel.
He is.
That's
going to happen. It's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. Sheamus is going heel.
Yeah, he says, "Oh, no hard feelings, fella." So.
Sorry if I burst your little bubble there and told you something that's coming in the future, but Sheamus deserves to be a bad guy because he's a good guy. He sucks.
He sucks. Yeah. What's the best thing for it? It worked. Hey, it worked last time. You know, the Sheamus got fucking ice cold about 2 or 3 years ago. They turned him heel, and I think they also put the U.S. title on him, and he got heated back up, and then they eventually turned him back babyface. So maybe they're thinking, well, let's just do that again. And by the way, I'm not going to mention all of them, but throughout the night there were all these vignettes backstage with Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella being sort of fucked with by Kane. Yeah, like horror movie stuff. Like the Kane mask was on the back door or the back of their dressing room door, or the Kane mask was like lit up on a table, and we're like, just really lame like
Yeah.
horror movie stuff.
Brie
Uh,
Bella, Brie Bella couldn't even make the cut of a B film. She is horrible.
yeah, she's not a very good actress. Um, so that goes on throughout the episode of Raw. But back in the ring, RVD and Cesaro have a match, and a really nice long TV match. Um,
Yeah, it went through 3 commercials.
yeah, yeah, and it ended up with sort of a non-finish. They did like a disqualification when Cesaro ignores the referee's count. He keeps pummeling RVD after the 5 count, so he gets disqualified. But it looks like they're building to keep things going between these two, like we were talking earlier, like the two Heyman guys, or the former Heyman guy and the current Heyman guy. Um, which is good because they're both great in the ring, but it seems like they're sort of dropping the Heyman versus Zeb Coulter thing that they were doing with Swagger.
Well, with Rob Van Dam, you don't need a manager because Rob gets over with the fans as it is.
Oh yeah,
I love the little shiner he was sporting because when he hit that trash can off that frog splash, I saw that impact. I saw
yeah.
when that trash can hit him right in the face, and I could see that his face was already bruising up by the end of the night. So it's just one of those moments where you're in the business and you see something like that happen, and you know that shit had to hurt. I was more concerned because that trash can was split and cut and rigid, and I was like, oh man, somebody's going to get sliced right open on that thing.
Yeah, it had that really sharp edge to it, I know.
But I thought this was a good match. I love that they are showing not just Cesaro in the ring and his wrestling ability, but how vicious he can be by putting him on the outside and just continuing to pummel RVD without even caring what the referee says, and having Paul Heyman. That was really nice. Paul Heyman got in there and was like, you're going to get suspended. You're going to get suspended. You need to stop. Step away. You need. And it's like he was trying to get it, give some logic to Cesaro, which I thought was cool because that's what managers do. So but I did like that he was just pounding away, pointing back and pounding on his head. I was digging that.
Yeah, I like when Heyman does that with Brock too. And I think that's really effective. Like Heyman will be like, "You have to stop. You're going to kill him, or you're going to get in trouble." Or, like I think that's really effective because it makes the guy look like a complete machine. Like his manager has to literally stop him, or he's going to cross the line and do something horrible. Next up was they did a Wyatt family promo in the ring. Bray cut a promo talking about how he doesn't. He does what he does for the innocent people and for the people who are sort of swept aside and neglected. He talked about the girl the girl who wakes up crying because she doesn't think she's pretty enough, which sounds a lot like babyface stuff.
It did. It did
sounded
sound
a lot
like babyface stuff.
Like he's standing up for the little people, and then at the end he says that he's a god. So I guess, and then people booed that. So I guess we know. So blasphemy, he can go right up to the point of blasphemy, and they'll cheer for him.
Oh, there's the line. Oops.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. But it's another good Wyatt promo. And they
I thought it was well done. I thought that was well done. Even if he did go a little baby face there, I thought it was needed because he's got those supporters in.
Well, and I mean, the thing about Bray is that with his character, if he would have if he gets cheers, he would. If he gets cheers, he would acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. Like he's the type of guy that would. If he heard people cheering for him, he wouldn't just pretend he didn't hear it. He would be like, "Yeah, that's right. See, they're coming with me." So, the babyface thing makes some sort of sense. Okay, what happened next? Oh, next was Ryback versus Cody. And there was another sort of I think they were trying to do another miscommunication spot because Goldust was on the outside with Cody, and Axel and Goldust were fighting on the outside, and Axel throws Goldust into the post right when Cody's up on top of the top rope there, which I guess was supposed to sort of shake Cody's balance. And
Whatever.
then Ryback grabbed him and hit him with the Muscle Buster and pinned him there. So they keep teasing this, oh, Goldust and Cody are going to break up sort of thing. And that's
First
really
off, WWE rings, they bounce, but they don't move. You hit that post, guess what's going to win? The post. It's not going anywhere. So I thought it was a little shady there at the end. I thought it looked a little hokey with Goldust backing up into the post. But it went nowhere. It absolutely went nowhere. Cody just shows a little aggression, but arm in arm, him and Goldust walk out of that match, with no heat whatsoever being shown. So I think that they realize they got something here, and they're just going to milk it a little bit before it explodes. Just really, really be sure that this is what's going to need to be done. Make sure he's going to get over as a heel when they finally have him turn against Goldust. So I don't think he's ready for it yet. I don't think the fans are ready for it yet.
Yeah, that's a good point because they haven't. I mean, they've paid so little attention to Goldust and Cody that they've kind of cooled off. So if they broke up now, it'd be like, okay. I mean, if they had broken up when they were still a really hot tag team, it would have meant something. But now that they haven't, been doing anything for so many months, it's just sort of, oh, okay, they're going to break up, whatever. Next was another episode in the continuing feud of Los Matadores versus 3MB. The Los Matadores and El Torito come out to celebrate Cinco de Mayo, and they're throwing candy into the crowd, and then 3MB comes out. Although I guess shouldn't it be 4MB now or 3.5 MB?
Yeah, 3.5 MB.
3.5 MB with Hornswoggle there. There was a good spot. I thought it was, and this is totally just for comedy. There's nothing serious going on here, but I thought there was a funny line when Jinder Mahal said to Los Matadores that they were in America and they should speak English. I thought that was pretty funny.
Oh, I thought the best part was right at the beginning. He's like, WWE Juniverse. It's
Juniverse.
Nah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Juniverse.
Yeah. This is America. You should speak American. So they're still going at it. And I guess that Mahal is injured supposedly. So I guess if they do like a 6-man full, big people and little people in a 6-man, I guess they would do Heath and Drew McIntyre teaming up with Hornswoggle versus Los Matadores and El Torito.
What the hell was Drew wearing last night? That was like a shredded leather kilt, I believe.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
I like how they've separated them. It's like the Wyatt family. They've given each one their own kind of personality. The Wyatt family. They've even done it in S.H.I.E.L.D. for the most part, giving them all slightly different outfits to, separate all three of them. So I like that they did that with 3MB and they're not spoiled. Although I loved when 3MB was coming out to the different gimmicks, being like in the Freebirds. I thought that was great. I think if you'd have continued to do that, they'd have got over as baby faces.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what they were worried about. I mean, everybody. That's what we keep talking about with like the way a modern wrestling crowd seems to work now. Is like, I mean, if people are good enough, everybody will get over as a babyface. Then which I guess wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Then people can just choose who they want to cheer for. Next was Kofi Kingston versus Rusev, not Alexander Rusev, but just Rusev. Because I guess Alexander's too much to remember.
Yes.
And Lana basically did the same intro that she did on the pay-per-view, where she brought up Vladimir Putin and said that, Rusev has moved to Russia and he's going to fight for Putin and blah, blah, blah. And there was actually a USA chant that broke out. This was a short match. Rusev finished it with the usual. He hit the slam and the camel clutch after Lana says, Rusev crush!
I do want to mention that Kofi got a good bit of offense in that match. A hell of a lot more than R-Truth and Xavier Woods got in when they actually did a handicap match. I give it to Kofi because they at least let him shine a little bit against Rusev.
Yeah, that's
true. Destroying him.
Like,
apparently Rusev's the racist one. He's been beating up on the black people.
Yeah, what is it? Is it like an Eastern European thing? Do they just not like black folks over there? I don't. He does. It does seem like he's been beating up on the black guys a lot. Like here comes this huge like European white guy with a super blonde manager, and he's like, "Well, where are the black people?
Mhm.
I will show them."
That's right. Prime example. R-Truth, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston. There are dark-skinned people who probably will never raise above a mid-card status ever.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. I don't know. And the thing is, I don't even think it's something that they're doing on purpose. I just think it's just, it's the company is run and has always been run by white guys.
Mhm.
And I mean, and it may be similar to why the women's division is never taken that seriously
Sexist.
because they're just like, fine, this is the women's match, who
Because
gives a shit?
R-Truth can get over. You could give R-Truth the ball. He'll
Oh,
run with it. The man can speak and
absolutely,
get the crowd going. He's got a ton of ability.
absolutely.
He looks great. I mean, you could do something with R-Truth. Other companies have. It's been proven.
I agree. I agree. He could be doing a lot more than he's doing. That's for sure. And even when he had that quick little summer program against Cena a couple years ago, I thought he did okay. I mean, they veered a little too much into comedy, I think, with him, but I think he did very well. He definitely proved that he could hold his own at that level. Um, next,
Jimmy.
yeah, little Jimmy.
Little Jimmy. Little Johnny's brother.
Well, yeah. Man, I wonder if little John and little Jimmy they have play dates or whatever. Um, So the next match, our world heavyweight champion was in action in a non-title match against Alberto Del Rio, who, just as a reminder, is a former world champion and former WWE champion himself. Not that you would be able to tell from the way he's been used the last couple of months. But they have a pretty good match, I thought. I really liked this match, and
I,
it had
I
a
think I think Alberto has those. Well, he's Mexican, so he was under a mask. He has those high flying abilities. He can hang with Daniel Bryan and what he does. I'm sure there's nothing that Daniel Bryan can do that Alberto doesn't know
right.
about because he has been schooled in a better country for wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. And he, I mean, he comes from a wrestling family. I mean, he's got it in his blood. And they have a good match, and it builds to a clean finish with the tap out. He gets him into the yes lock. He actually reverses the attempt to put on the arm bar into the yes lock, which I thought was a good finish. And he gets the tap out, and no interference from Kane in the match, which I was happy to see. You know that the Kane stuff is coming eventually, but they saved it for after the match. They gave us a clean finish in the match, which is cool.
Yeah, it was nice to see.
And then the really stupid shit with Kane happens where they're going to their rent-a-car because Brian and Bree are going to leave like right away. They were going to leave before the match, and then Steph kind of popped in and said, "Oh, by the way, you have to wrestle first." So they're getting in the car. The car doesn't start because it is a horror movie, I guess, at this point. Brian pops the hood, and when he puts the hood back down after he's fixed the car, Kane is in the car, and he shows that he's really not that dangerous after all because Bree is able to hold him off just by going like this and like screaming. So
That's the defense for any type of monster. You just wave your hands at them like this and scares them off. Hold them up. That's a defense. Like zombies, there's a zombie defense and a monster defense is just this.
That shit works, I guess, because Kane's like 7 feet tall, and 2 weeks ago he dropped Brian on his head 3 times, but now he's literally this far away from Bree in the backseat of a car, and she's fine because she went like this.
Mm-hmm. I'd have put my big glove around her throat and just picked her up out of that car if I was Kane.
Just pulled her up out through the fucking sunroof. But so Brian gets out and brawls with Kane. They end up driving away with Kane on the car, and Kane gets thrown off the car and dumped on the floor. And then Brian gets out of the car so that he can see Kane do the Undertaker sit-up, and then they get back in the car and they drive away. So that was the end of the horror movie portion of Monday Night Raw.
I'd have backed that car up.
That's what I. That's kind of what I thought he was going to do at first. It's like, oh, is he going to fucking back over him and finish him off? Maybe they're not going to do the rematch after all. Maybe Kane wants some time off. But yeah, I mean, it looks like they're going to do the rematch. You said it's going to be a buried alive match. I mean, the buried alive match is a really gimmick match, so I guess maybe it makes sense that they're going in this direction. But this stuff is so goofy.
Mm-hmm.
And Bryan isn't really that kind of a goofy character. It doesn't really fit to have Daniel Bryan, the wrestler's wrestler, having to face Kane and do all this horror movie shit.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, hopefully, you know, eventually they'll leave the belt on him long enough that we'll get to what I hope we get to in Bryan's first title run. I would love to see Bryan versus Cesaro or Bryan versus Bray Wyatt. I think those are like the big, you know, the big matches that he could have. So hopefully we'll get to that point. But,
that shows you how backwards WWE is, because they give a man like Daniel Bryan, who the fans have been wanting to be champion for so long, give him a gimmick match at the pay-per-view, or, you know, whatever. Yeah. And then give him the really good match for free to watch on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, that's true. That Del Rio match was a terrific fucking match.
Mm-hmm.
You get that for free, and then you get him, you know, smashing a tire iron into Kane's face. You have to get the pay-per-view to see that.
It doesn't make you a tough champion. Anybody can smack another person in the face with a tire iron. That's not special. There's nothing special about that.
No. Next was the Intercontinental title rematch, Big E versus the new champion, Bad News Barrett. A decent match between the two of them. Not quite as hot, I thought, as their match on the pay-per-view or the special event, whatever. But a decent match, and I guess it gets the rematch out of the way. So now Barrett can go off and do something else, and who knows what they're going to do with Big E. But just kind of solidifies Barrett as the new champion. He beats the old champion yet again, and not a terrible match. Nothing worth writing home about, but you know, pretty good.
Although guys like us are going to need cosmetic surgery in order to be worthy of the new Intercontinental Champion, Bad News Barrett. That's what he said.
True.
So.
That's true. Yeah, what did he call called the fans like hideously deformed or something? Mm-hmm. I thought that was pretty funny.
And the referee called him Wade during the match. It clearly called him Wade. Yeah. I'm like, about that. Don't call him Wade. That's a no-no. You're not doing that.
That's not my name anymore.
We're not doing it. I got some bad news for you, ref. You're fired.
My first name is Bad News.
Right. It's on my birth certificate, which Zeb Coulter has right now.
Yeah. He says I snuck across the border.
I don't know what he's complaining for, because I am the Intercontinental Champion for the 4th time.
Not that you can remember any of the other times.
Because I certainly couldn't.
For real? He's had it before? Wow.
Yeah, I remember you wearing it once.
Yeah. They also did this thing that at first I thought that I was going to hate it, and I thought it was kind of mean. It was the Mr. T thing, the Mr. T Mother's Day video. By the end of it, I thought it was really funny.
I thought it was really well done, too. I was like, when I saw the video pop up, I thought I was going to be annoyed once again by Mr. T, but the remix of all that made it great.
Yeah, they actually cut it to the beat, so it sounded like he was kind of rapping it, you know, and I thought it wound up winning me over. I thought it was pretty funny.
And seeing the timing for that was perfect, because it is Mother's Day now. See, he would have done that on Mother's Day, it'd have been fine.
Yeah. Well, I guess they wanted, you know, Mother's Day is Sunday, I guess they'll probably show it again on SmackDown, but nobody watches SmackDown, so they wanted to show it on the show that people watch, so that people would see it.
And you can watch it on the WWE website, too.
There you go. If you want to see the remix of Mr. T's Mother's Day wish... I even love my mother on Father's Day.
I hope I do not bore you. End it right there. You're done.
Yeah. Stop.
Forget it. You're anyway.
Okay, so next is the debut of Adam Rose. He comes out, he interrupts Zeb Coulter and Jack Swagger, cutting a promo about all the people that Zeb would like to deport from the WWE, which includes Paul Heyman, even though he's not. He's from here, but Zeb wants him out anyway because he's with Cesaro. He says we'll get rid of Heyman too if we can find a country that'll take him. And then Adam Rose comes out with the party people, and he crowd surfs down. And I noticed the live crowd was singing along with the theme song, but other than that, I was a little worried about it. I thought it came across a little cold.
Yeah, I thought it was a little stale, and
Yeah.
this is the reason why. And I read this. This is the reason why he didn't have a match either, because they want to have a little bit more time getting him over with the Raw crowd, like they did with the NXT crowd. So that's what they're gonna do a little bit. They're going to just nurse that and get him over real good before they give you a viable competition for him.
I do think that entrance is going to get him over. I mean, it got over almost right away on NXT because that NXT crowd is just naturally fond of that kind of stuff. Like most of those, I get the feeling most of the people who go to those NXT tapings are like really serious, like hardcore wrestling fans.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just, they're kind of smart to everything. And so it might take a little longer for it to get over with the bigger Raw crowd, but I think it will eventually. I mean, it's just such a funny idea, and the song is catchy and easy to sing along with, and, it'll be like another Fandango type of thing.
But hopefully better.
Oh, yeah. I know Fandango's probably saying, yeah, that worked out real well.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the Battle Royal and nobody even noticed I was there.
I was doing much better on Santina's web show.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Oh, Johnny Curtis. You're good and all. I just hope they remember that you work for them.
But Adam Rose should never have grabbed Zeb Coulter's mustache. That's a no-no. Don't ever do that. It's a man's facial hair. You don't touch a man's facial hair, because only real men grow beards like this. Only real men can do this. And you don't touch the beard.
It's very disrespectful.
It is.
It's very disrespectful.
Unless I tell you to, and you have to be really cute too. You're like, ah. I don't know how many girls have run their hands through this. They love
it. Okay, you can touch it.
Does my wife watch it? Oh, never mind.
What I meant to say was, okay, so next up was the main event, Shield versus Wyatt's in a 6-man tag. And again, a nice long match, especially for a TV match. They went close to 20 minutes here. And it ended with Evolution running in. All 3 members of Evolution ran in. And they kind of got involved in the match and distracted Roman. Roman actually hit the Superman punch on Triple H, but then Bray was waiting for him and knocked him down and hit him with the Sister Abigail. So Bray Wyatt pins Roman Reigns to win the match. So they still keep the Wyatts really strong, which makes sense because they're still working with Cena. And then Evolution just puts a beat down on the Shield, and they do the triple power bomb on Reigns to sort of give the Shield's big spot back to them. And it ends with Evolution standing tall in the ring. And so clearly Evolution versus the Shield is going to continue on, I guess, leading into Payback, the next big special event. Which I guess, if that's the way they go. I mean, the 6-man at Extreme Rules was good. There's no reason to think that the 6-man or whatever they do at the next show isn't going to be good. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how it goes.
I think when Batista came down, Batista looked good. I like Batista with the beard. Anyways, he looks a lot better. I love Evolution's new T-shirt. That is an awesome shirt. I think when he picked up Dean Ambrose and slammed him into the steps, he did it with a lot of ease. Laid him down way too easy. Didn't look very good.
I agree.
That was the only fault I had with Batista the whole night. I was glad to see him there.
Because you could tell he was waiting to do that spine buster, so it would be like a big spot. Mm. And then he did it, and it was just sort of, okay, But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good episode of Raw, all things considered. It's worth for the main event was a good match. Bryan versus Del Rio was a good match. So if you watch it just for the wrestling, and really Cesaro versus RVD was a good match too, even though it ended with kind of the DQ finish.
Barrett and Big E, I thought was really
Barrett,
good.
yeah, so it was a lot of quality wrestling this week. So it was a good show.
I definitely love the spear through the ropes. That was
Oh
probably
man,
his
yeah,
the best move of the night to me. I love that.
yeah, that's like insane.
For a
But
big man like that to do it,
oh,
yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, if he does it enough times, it'll get over. I mean, it's if he does it a few more times, people start to learn to expect it, like one of his signature moves, and yeah, that'll be a big deal for him.
If it becomes a signature move, he's going to have to put a name on it so WWE can trademark it.
Yeah, right.
They've been asking all their wrestlers to do this, to name your move so they can trademark it, because apparently they can't trademark the names of real wrestling moves. It's like, oh, why don't you just use real wrestling move names?
Right. Yeah. Well, that reminds me, 'cause I want to talk about the Legend of the Week here in a minute, because it's a really great one that you picked this time. But I watched they on the WWE Network, they just within the last week or so added all of the Clash of the Champions shows,
Yeah.
which is awesome. If you love like old school NWA, WCW stuff, like the Clash of the Champions, a lot of those are really great shows. And even the ones that are kind of shitty as shows have good matches that you can't really find anywhere else. And I watched the one, I forget what number it was, but it was from November of 1991. I watched it yesterday, and it has one of my favorite, maybe my favorite tag team match ever. And it's Ricky Steamboat and Dustin Rhodes versus Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko, who were the enforcers at the time. And Ricky Steamboat was like a surprise replacement partner because Barry Windham had an injured hand, and he came in and subbed for Dustin Rhodes, and it was Steamboat's first match back in the company after being in WWF for a year, and it was just like a big surprise. And I remember watching it at the time going, oh my God. And it was a great match, and the announcers were Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone, and they were actually calling the match. They were describing the moves. They were giving the names of the wrestling moves. They were paying attention to what was going on in the ring. And that's something that you kind of take it for granted now that because they don't do that. Or they just say like, oh, Daniel Bryan is in control, but they don't tell you what's actually going on. And when you watch an older match with good announcers that are actually calling the moves, I mean, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's why I always thought that Gordon Solie was probably one of the best commentators that ever lived. I love Gordon. And I still stand by that. I personally think, a lot of people think Jim Ross is the best. I thought Gordon Solie was the best. And the next would be Joey Styles.
Yeah. Well, Jim Ross is great, and Jim Ross is important because he sort of was the voice that defined what is now the current style of announcing, where you're more about the storytelling and less about calling the moves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Solie was amazing. I mean, because he knew the name of every move, and he would tell you, and and Joey Styles too. I agree. Joey Styles is a really, if you watch Joey Styles' old ECW stuff, not so much his WWE stuff, but his ECW stuff where he was calling most of those matches by himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was just phenomenal. Okay, so let's talk about the legend this week, Doc. Who is our legend of the week this week?
You mean it's time?
Oh, it's time.
Oh yeah, baby, it's Vader time! I picked Mr. Leon White, better known as Big Van Vader, and our buddy Rob Talbert is texting me right now.
I thought that was Vader. I thought that was Vader.
We are talking about Big Van Vader, a man who I believe is a big legend in this business, and not just in America, but in Japan as well. You're talking about a 13-time World Heavyweight Champion. We're talking 3 times in WCW. We're talking 3 times in the IWGP. Just tons of championships over in Japan. He is so well respected. Actually, he started his career here in America, but quickly moved over to Japan. And if anybody is able to do that, if anybody as an American wrestler can go to Japan or Mexico, you have that opportunity, do it. You will learn so much. But I have to tip my hat off. He started off in this business going as the name Baby Bull. which I thought was really cool. He had exposure in the AWA. Like I said, he was in the New Japan Wrestling. This was all before his WCW days. When he finally came to WCW, he wasn't really used for about 2 years. He was used sparingly for about 2 years before they gave him something full-time. And I think we all... he was a former WCW champion. Ron Simmons was the guy who actually beat Vader for the belt that changed, pretty much put a historic mark in the history books of wrestling. That match was Big Van Vader versus Ron Simmons. One of my favorite things he ever did was when he power bombed Mick Foley, well, Cactus Jack at the time, but he power bombed him on the concrete. That was something you never saw before. I mean, he pulled the mats back up off the floor and power bombed him, and you heard that thud of Mick Foley hitting that ground. And you felt for him, but it was something that you did not see in wrestling. Them pulled the mats back and used the concrete floor. That wasn't the only damage he ever did to Mick Foley. Most people who have read Mick Foley's book know that the man is missing part of his ear. And that was during a match with Vader, and I believe it was Munich, Germany. I'm not sure. I know it was Germany.
I think you're right. Yeah, it was Munich.
And Mick Foley got thrown through the ropes, and I think Mick Foley he caught his ear on the ropes. Now that's steel cable wrapped in tape. That's what we call ropes in the business. But it just caught it and just took that ear right off. And it's funny because it was delivered to him too after the match in the locker room. So he still got actually that part of the ear. Very famous for his Vader bomb. He had a brief stint in the WWE. I don't think it was anything too big. He did get to wrestle names like The Undertaker. He went through a program with him. Let me get down here to my World Wrestling Federation. They teamed him up with Yokozuna. Jim Cornette was his manager for a while. But he didn't really do anything. He feuded with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker between 96 and 97. And then, of course, he returns to All Japan after that, but then went into semi-retirement around 2003. He returned to wrestling around 2010. He still does it periodically, and mostly with his son, who is now wrestling. I believe his son's name. I can't find it here real quick. But anyways, his son is now wrestling, and he's been helping him out. Jesse White is his son's name. So, and he also, White began training Jesse to become a professional wrestler in Japan. So it just goes to show you, Japan, to me, is probably the best place in the world where you could learn this sport and be treated like a true celebrity. So you gotta think that Leon or Vader was just well loved in Japan, and I think that's why he spent the majority of his career over there. But you may have seen him. He has been in a few films. One of his films that he starred in was Fist of the North Star back in 1995. He played a character called Goliath. He was in an episode of Boy Meets World, in an episode called The Thrilla and Philla. He was also in the episode New Friends and Old and 16 Candles and 400-Pound Men. He was known as Francis Albert Leslie, or Frankie Stachino. He was also on an episode of Baywatch, where he played himself in an episode ironically called Bash at the Beach.
I remember that episode. I remember that episode. He wrestled. Did he wrestle Hogan in that episode?
I never watched Baywatch.
I remember watching that episode because I think Ric Flair was in that one too. But yeah.
One of his things that he was famous for was when the WWE toured Kuwait back in 1997. Vader appeared on a program called Good Morning Kuwait. It's like Good Morning America, but it's Good Morning Kuwait. And during that interview, the interviewer asked him, and this is a no-no, asked Vader if wrestling was fake. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That face right there. Do not do that.
You don't want to do that.
I take offense to it. I mean, I was like, you can call it organized, you can call it predetermined. Do never, ever, ever call it fake to a professional wrestler. It is far from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he actually got so livid that he destroyed his set, flipped it up, and grabbed a hold of the announcer. He was fined for that because he was a part of the WWF at the
Yeah.
time. He was fined $164 for the incident. Yeah, he used foul language on the TV and everything. He was not happy camper that day.
Yeah, I've seen that video. That is pretty crazy. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if you have like a 400-pound man on your TV show and he's a wrestler, don't ask him if wrestling's fake. I mean, just don't do that. Um, the thing about Vader's, you mentioned his run in the WWF. It's a shame that they didn't do more with him because, I mean, he was not only a physically impressive guy, but he could have such great matches. I mean, he had in WCW he had great matches with Cactus Jack and with Sting and with Ric Flair. His match against Ric Flair at Starrcade '94, I think, was voted like the favorite Starrcade match ever when WWE did a poll a few years ago. And I mean, he could work really great matches, and he came into WWF, and I remember hearing on one of his shoot interviews, Jim Cornette talked about how when he first came in, Vince wanted to rename Vader the Mastodon. He didn't even want to call him Vader. And Jim Cornette said, Vince, it's fucking Vader. Everybody knows him. He was just wrestling in WCW. He was the world champion in WCW for like 2 years. Everybody knows him. You can't just bring him in and pretend like nobody's ever heard of him before and call him the Mastodon. And it's just funny, like one of those weird Vince McMahon stories where everybody talks all about all the good things Vince does and how he all the things that make him seem like a genius. And then you hear this story where he basically signs away a former world champion from the competition, and he has to be talked into using the guy's famous name. It's like, what the fuck? It's like you sign away Hulk Hogan and you completely change his gimmick. It's like he's fucking Vader. Just bring him in.
He was in WWE the man they call Vader.
Oh, that's true. The man they call Vader. Well,
not us. We didn't want to call him that. It was the man they call Vader.
Yeah. We didn't come up with this shit. So, yeah, and I remember also Mick Foley saying about the ear incident, how he was pissed off that WCW did nothing with that.
Mm-hmm.
That like they were feuding at the time, and he was like, "Come on! I mean, I know it was an accident, but still, the guy ripped off my ear. Like, you don't think that could be used in our feud?" And they were like, "Nope, not going to mention it." So,
yeah, it's like that's the one thing. If something happens internationally, WWE will jump on that shit, and that's something WCW would lacked on. When they went on, when WWE go on foreign tours, they will talk that up a storm. They love doing that, and they really should, because outside of these borders, wrestling is huge, absolutely huge in most other countries. It's to me, it's like as a lover of wrestling, I felt like I grew up in the wrong country. Yeah. From a wrestling standpoint, it's like I'm glad I'm at least close to Mexico. I'm stuck in the middle of Canada and Mexico, so I can go either north or south and catch really good trained wrestling. So, but that's just my opinion. I do respect American wrestling, especially those trained in the South. To me, they got proper training down there. It's just these days, it's disenchanting to see where I live in Hagerstown, Maryland. We're so close to the West Virginia border here. West Virginia has no laws whatsoever with the State Athletic Commission when it comes to professional wrestling. So anybody who just has enough bank, the ability to buy a ring and get a building, all of a sudden think they're a freaking wrestling promoter over here, and it drives me nuts. And for the most part, the guys will train over in West Virginia where there is no school, and you can clearly see this. So it's like it's just so saturated. The United States is so saturated with these shitty ass wrestling organizations. And I maybe it's just me. I don't know if I go to Canada or if I went to Mexico or I went to Japan, I would catch the same thing. I'm not sure. The fact is, I don't hear about them.
Well, I do think that's definitely the perception, though. I mean, I've ever since I've been a wrestling fan, and I actually, started following it through the internet or reading wrestling magazines or whatever, and like got really into it. I mean, I've always had the impression that the guys in Japan Like if you go to a Japanese dojo and you survive a year through there, that you know how to work,
Hmm.
that you're well trained. You might not end up being one of the greatest ever, but you know how to get into the ring and you know how to work, and you're snug and you're safe and you can do shit that looks good and you're not going to fuck shit up. You know what you're doing, you know. So I've heard the same thing. Let's actually go,
I
no, go
did
ahead.
like I did like in the WWE when they tried their attempt to turn Vader as a good guy. When Bret Hart entered the whole thing about the United States, and I believe it was my buddy, my good buddy, the Patriot, good friend of mine.
Yeah, the Patriot. That's right.
Yeah, he was in a match with, I believe it was Bret Hart. Bret Hart draped the Canadian flag over him. That's when Vader picked up the flag, broke it in half, and the fans started to support him a little bit, but it didn't last very long. Vader is a natural heel and should always be a heel. Never, never, ever attempt to turn that guy as a babyface. He can be a babyface now because he's a retired wrestler. He's a legend in this business, so you can give him those proper credits. But while he was still an active wrestler, never, ever should be a babyface.
Oh yeah, because he's a monster.
He
He's
is
just a
a
natural
monster.
monster.
I love
He's
Vader.
He's a mastodon. He's a big mastodon. There are a couple questions that people left in the YouTube comments here since we've been yammering. One of them is from the Brexter, and he asked, and this has been a while ago, but I'm just scrolling through here. He said, why do you think people dislike Batista so much? What do you think?
I think he was forced down our throats. That a wrestler, and this is why I strongly feel, a wrestler after a long hiatus should never, ever, I don't care how big your name is or how big you think your name is or the WWE think your name is, if you have a long hiatus and you decided to come back, you do not start at the top. And it never should be like that. That's the WWE's problem, is sometimes they push people way too fast, especially when people return, like Chris Jericho or Triple H or John Cena. They go straight to the top. Well, while you were gone, people filled your void.
Right.
And I think fans are smarter than that now. I think that was a lot of his problems, that they knew that WWE was going to try to shove him down our throat, and they weren't going to have any of that. They want to see these new stars today. They're ready for that change. We're tired of seeing the same thing for over 10 years. Why are you going backwards? Batista's just one of those guys. He's one-dimensional. There's nothing really to him. He's not a very good talker. He's not a great wrestler. He looks like $1,000,000. But that's all he's got. And you can't push the man unless he's hanging out in a group like Evolution, unfortunately. And that's really my opinion. That's the way I see it. And I apologize if you're a Batista fan. I do apologize if I put him down a lot. I do respect the guy. He's not top tier wrestler. WWE thinks. I don't think he is.
Yeah. And by the way, you guys who are watching us live right now, in the last 5 minutes or so, if you have questions for me and Doc, go ahead and post it in the comments, and we'll see if we can take a few. Yeah, my thing about Batista is I agree with everything you just said, and also I just think when they brought him back, they just didn't have anything for him. He just didn't do anything. They thought that just the mere fact that Batista was here would be enough.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not The Rock. He's not Steve Austin. He's not someone that people were sort of talking about, like, oh, I really, who I would love to see back? Batista. I just don't think there were that many people that felt that way about him. And so when he came back, and it was like, Batista's back, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
He's here. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, good to see you, Batista. And then by the time they brought him back, like you said, people had moved on. They wanted to see Daniel Bryan. They didn't want to see Batista win the world title. They wanted to see Daniel Bryan. And to the company's credit, they did that. They changed direction and went with Bryan instead of with Batista. But a lot of it is their own fault.
Yeah. They had to do that, getting pulled, kicking, and screaming to do it, but they did.
Yeah.
Took long enough.
Brexter actually had another question too. He said, "Do you think Cena is going to leave anytime soon? Hopefully." Brexter, I guess you're not a Cena fan. What do you think? Do you think how much longer do you think Cena is going to be around as a top guy.
I think Cena's going to be a top guy for the remainder of his career. He has, in the time that he's been there now, Brexter, I am not a John Cena fan either, but I can see what the man does, and I respect him a lot. He is a workhorse in the WWE. There's nothing that he has been asked to do that he hasn't done. He has granted so many Make-A-Wish wishes that how can you not respect the man who does these kind of things for sick children? You know, he is part of that machine, and as long as he's in top physical condition, he looks like $1 million, he can still cut a good promo. I don't expect him to go anywhere anytime soon.
No, I wouldn't expect him to go anywhere anytime soon either. I mean, he's still in good shape. He's still relatively young, and the WWE, if anything, the last few years, even though they've sort of made up for it a little bit by pushing Daniel Bryan and by bringing in some of the younger guys and seeming like they push the Shield and they're pushing the Wyatts and they're pushing Cesaro. I mean, they still, if push comes to shove, they will play it safe, and you can't get any safer right now than John Cena. I mean, he's the guy who has been the guy for close to 10 years now. He still sells a shitload of merchandise, whether us internet wrestling fans like him or not. He still sells a shit ton of merchandise. He's reliable in the ring. He's not going to be like, he's going to work hard. He doesn't bitch about putting people over. He's mostly a company man. You don't really hear about him whining and complaining about the direction of his character or his gimmick but I mean,
hectic schedule,
yeah. And like you see, he does all the Make-A-Wish stuff. I mean, just in terms of a business, it makes sense to go with Cena. And they know that if Bryan falls flat on his face as champion in the next couple of months, that Cena's going to be there.
Yeah. The thing about Cena is he does garner a response whether you like him or you hate him. I don't think there's hardly one fan sitting in their seat just twiddling their thumbs when John Cena comes out. You're either cheering him or you're booing him. He garners a response from the fan, one way or the other, and that's the deal.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about. And he's actually said that in interviews. When he was on Steve Austin's podcast a few months ago, that was one of the things that he said, because Austin asked him about, what do you think about the mixed reaction you always get from the fans? And he said, as long as they're making noise. He said the thing that I would say to people when I'm in a match with somebody and they're chanting "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks," Cena said, if I were whoever I'm wrestling, I would be pissed off, because why aren't they saying anything about me? It's all focused on Cena, and even if they're saying Cena sucks, they're not saying "Let's go Randy Orton." They're saying Cena sucks.
Yeah. Usually when you hear those chants, it's usually back and forth, but not with John Cena. Back and forth is still on John Cena.
Right. But Cena's smart. Cena knows a lot about the business. Cena has when you let him when you hear him talk in interviews. I mean, he knows his shit. And I don't necessarily want to see him be the world champion again for a very long time. But I'm not in a hurry to see him leave. I think he could, if for no other purpose, keep him around to keep putting the young guys over.
Right, because he is one of those guys that if he's willing to put the younger guys over, that's a big step for them, because he is John Cena.
Absolutely. And at this point, he's always going to be John Cena.
Yeah, Bray Wyatt's winning over him in Extreme Rules. As chinsy as it was, that's a big thing. You just went over the top guy of the last over a decade. You just went over on him.
Yeah.
You should feel really lucky.
And even though and the fact that Dolph Ziggler has gone over him and Daniel Bryan has gone over him, it still means something. The fact that Bray Wyatt went over him and he's already put over 3 or 4 other guys, that doesn't matter. He's still John Cena. He's still the top guy. And he still has the ability to make new people, so they should keep him around for that reason, if for no other reason.
See, this is my thing I've said about Cena. Cena today is the modern-day Hulk Hogan. So if you beat him, it's incredible that you beat him. The one difference is he's not so selfish that he won't put those guys over. Or he will use his political power to push people or keep them down. John Cena won't do that. But
Absolutely.
he's everything Hulk Hogan was, except for those negative aspects.
Yeah, he'll actually put people over,
Mm-hmm.
and put them over for real, not like kick out at the 3 count like Hogan did for. I know it's stupid, but it still bothers me that Hogan kicked out at the 3 count for Ultimate Warrior in WrestleMania 6. Like, you can't just fucking lay there, dude. It's his moment. Just lay there. He kicks out right at the 3 count. Like, oh, you just barely beat me, brother.
Half a second.
Come on, dude. It's wrestling. Put the guy over. Anyway, well, I'm gonna say we should just wrap this up for this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm having fun. I have tons of fun, but I've gone red.
Yeah, you have gone red again. Is Kane in there with you?
I don't know.
Are you under? Is your house? Is your house under the ring where hell is? Apparently.
Where hell is, yes.
Yeah.
Just before we leave, I just want to say this weekend, Saturday at 7 p.m. at the Berkeley County Fairgrounds, Championship Pro Wrestling will be presenting WrestleFest. We are giving you some great matches. You're going to see the legend, the Hall of Famer, Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant, in a hair versus mask match against one of his old rivals, the Masked Assassin. We're going to see lumberjack matches. We're going to see a 2-ring battle royal match. We're going to see a steel cage match. This show is going to be really good. So if you're in the Martinsburg, West Virginia area on Saturday, check us out. We're going to be at the Berkeley County Fairgrounds. Like I said, bell time is 7 p.m. You can check us out on Facebook at Championship Pro Wrestling. We'd love to see you guys there. So I just wanted to plug that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very few ways are better to spend a weekend in spring and summer than seeing a wrestling show. It's especially an indie wrestling show because you see stuff you wouldn't see any other place. So we'll be back to do this again next week. We're going to have another episode of Raw to talk about. We didn't have a chance to talk about it this week, but maybe next week if we have time, because we won't have as much wrestling to review. We can talk a little bit about some stuff on the WWE Network, like Legends House, the reality show that they're doing there with Mean Gene and Pat Patterson and a bunch of the old timers. Because I've been watching it and I have some thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Check it out this week. They're all getting manscaped.
Yeah, I saw that.
Duggan's gonna be a bitch.
Oh my god. Well, they're not shaving anymore. They're not. They don't wrestle anymore.
Oh my god, Hillbilly's gonna be a bitch.
Oh Jesus.
So, all right, brother. Well, let's wrap this up. Call it another great episode of Wrestling with Wrestling. As always, it's a pleasure to work with one of the famous men on YouTube. And if you haven't checked out, this guy's also on another channel called The Breakfast Club.
That's right.
Which is also a really good channel, so you should check that out and subscribe to that.
Yeah,
you can plug that information.
Yeah. My channel, and you, and of course, Doc, you are Boar's Head Bill.
I'm Boar's Head Bill on YouTube. You can check me out and subscribe. It's nothing but wrestling on there.
And so there you go. You got your choice, because I'm pretty sure we're not going to talk about wrestling at all on The Breakfast Club.
Mm-hmm.
And Doc is nothing but wrestling on Boar's Head Bill. So just take your pick. You can be guaranteed you'll never have to hear about wrestling, or you can hear about nothing but wrestling and see some cool indie wrestling matches. And yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week to talk at you again about some more wrestling. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.